So before we kick off this video, I wanted to just take a moment to thank each and every one of you who've decided to watch my videos as well as subscribe to my channel. We've seen about a 3,000% growth, and I can't tell you what that means to me. I love hearing from you all in the comments. It's been really fun over the past month, and I hope to continue doing this onward and continue to grow the channel. So with that, let's get into some Starlink news. So we recently had some Starlink news where Starlink lost a bid for the Rural Opportunity Digital Fund. And basically this is a fund set up to try to find a provider to bring high-speed internet to rural areas. Back in 2020, Starlink put a bid out for $885 million, saying that it could provide it to all of their 700,000 plus tenants in 32 different states. The FCC this week came back and said, we decided not to award that to Starlink. Now, admittedly, they said that the first round of proposals and bids was very high level and low detail. They also said they would be providing further scrutiny as we move towards the final decision in 2024-2025. Now, they have a couple reasons for not awarding this and taking it off the table from Starlink, all revolving around this idea that it's still a developing technology. Another thing that muddies the waters a bit, you're now asking these people in rural areas to buy a $600 satellite dish in order to just be able to access the internet. They felt it was not reasonable to spend a better part of the billion-dollar budget with one company that they feel is still using emerging technology that has not yet been proven. Now, I can tell you from being in a lot of rural areas, especially in West Virginia, I've actually seen fiber and cable running over a mountain. Now, you can't bury things in rocks, and it's very expensive to go through. In the case of West Virginia, this is an area where we have something called hollers. Now, these are very steep ravines that no communications can get to. It's very rugged country. So we have a problem in areas like this because the companies like Verizon and even tower building companies for 5G or laying hard cables is very difficult in these areas, and they don't want to spend the billions of dollars to lay the infrastructure, nor do they want to spend the time and effort to service those lines, because I can tell you they're constantly having problems in West Virginia because you can't bury those lines, which means it's subject to animal tampering, human tampering, and weather tampering. And really, this is the reason why we've seen a lot of the bigger, more brick and mortar fiber companies, copper companies shying away from these programs. They just know, even with $1 billion, there's not much they can do in 32 different states to provide broadband to these places. So what's the answer? We look to space. And how many space companies do we have providing it? Well, there are a couple. Most are private, but the major one that we all know of that has the most robust network in space for internet is Starlink. Now, of course, along with anything in this day and age, it has to get political. Now, we had two FCC commissioners, Mr. Carr and Mr. Symington, that dissented against the decision. And their reasoning was they felt that the obvious, Starlink absolutely has a proven track record. They point out that they're serving over 500,000 people at the moment right now. One even goes further and gets a little bit more catty. They're saying this was a personal reason because of Elon and his politics and not so much about the technology. He went so far as saying that Elon now has become the progressives' #1 enemy and says that today's decision goes along with Biden's continual regulatory harassment. Okay, so now we're on tinfoil stuff. I've got to talk about my tinfoil theory that they're not reporting, and I believe a lot of this has to do with Jeffrey Bezos. Now, hear me out. If you don't know, Jeffrey Bezos owns Blue Origin and also launching a competitor, Project Kuiper. Let's go back a little bit when we were looking at the lunar lander contract. Initially, SpaceX was awarded that contract, but Jeff Bezos went back to his home senator in his state of Washington and got her to basically petition and pull back that money, citing that we needed more competition. And I'm not even against that, but first you have to be a competitor, Mr. Bezos. Mr. Bezos still hasn't been in outer orbit and has now partnered with ULA, who, by the way, side note, he delayed their new rocket, the Vulcan, by years because he couldn't deliver his promised BE-4 engines. My theory, Bezos got involved. He wants Project Kuiper to get this award because he needs money. But yet, the FCC is kind of overlooking the fact that by 2024, Project Kuiper is supposed to have 50% of their satellites in space. They do not. They're nowhere close. And did I mention, once again, they were supposed to be delivering these on their own rockets, but instead, they're using ULA rockets. So we see continual failure by Bezos, but we also see his heavy influence, as you can note, with all these politics going on in space. Now, this may be a tinfoil conspiracy. We may find out that I'm completely wrong. We also may find out that there's some back channels in the FCC that, along with Jeffrey Bezos, who's a notable liberal, is kind of swaying the administration, versus we have Elon, who's very clearly right-wing. Now, I don't mess in politics. I have to be honest with you. I'm a libertarian. So, with that being said, I don't really care. I think both sides are broken personally. But when it comes to space, I don't believe we have any room for politics. You see, America has a problem that I think everyone here probably sees. Every little thing is political now. It used to be, as a kid, when I fell in love with space, we had NASA. Sure, it was somewhat political funding it, but there seemed to be this ultimate vision and goal of progress in space. Now we're looking at this and everything else that comes out being a bipartisan effort, with each one jockeying for their player in the game. So my take on all this, throw out all the politics. We have one company that has a proven track record that's continuing launching more and more satellites almost every month, and is continuing to develop their satellites. One of the FCC's worries is that as more people on board, it will continue to go down. Elon's answer, launch more satellites. And he is actually doing it on a regular schedule. So if you can't tell, I'm not the angry guy, but I'm frustrated because I really do think there's a lot more politics going on that is going to ultimately make this digital divide greater, or just continue to delay this digital divide more and more. And as a former teacher, I can tell you the importance of internet, especially for students' growth. If you can't provide that to students or to children, they're going to be at a severe disadvantage, not only in their own country of the United States, but worldwide. If you're like me and you are passionate about this subject, I would encourage you to email your senators for them to get involved. Because as it stands right now, if we're going to kowtow to Jeffrey Bezos, we're going to be decades behind again. He's not going to be able to get this satellite system up as fast as you think. And even if he does, he's going to go through a lot of growing pains. And if anything that his rocket company has taught me is they're inept. And once again, thank each and every one of you for subscribing and liking and watching these videos. It means a tremendous amount to me, and I look forward to the next video. I'm HillPhantom. I'll see you next time.